It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, a nursery worker admits sexually abusing young children in his care. Vincent Chan pleaded guilty to 26 charges after what has been described as one of the most harrowing and complex cases undertaken by the Metropolitan Police. Also ahead tonight, water restored to 24,000 homes in Kent, but it has to be boiled before drinking. Some residents of Tunbridge Wells were without supplies for 5 days. They can now use their bathrooms, but it's going to be 10 days before they can drink from the tap. Plus, we'll have an update on the price of baby formula. This is a story we've covered many times on the programme. And today, the Prime Minister vowed to do more to help families cope with spiralling costs. And we'll take you live to Windsor Castle tonight for all the pomp and pageantry as the King hosts the German President at a state banquet. All that to come, much more on the UK Tonight. A nursery worker has admitted sexually abusing young children in his care in North London. Vincent Chan pleaded guilty to 26 offences, a judge telling him today he will be sent to prison for many years when he's sentenced in January. Chan first came to the attention of the authorities after a whistleblower accused him of neglect. But when his electronic devices were examined, the true extent of his crimes became clear. A warning that this report from Rachel Venables contains details which viewers will find distressing.
Parents trusted this man to look after their children.
You're also further under arrest for digital penetration of a minor, OK? So same time of arrest, that's 10 to 8. You don't have to say anything, may help me defence if you do not mention when questioned, something which later on in court and be significant evidence.
But at the North London nursery where he worked, Vincent Chan had been sexually assaulting youngsters and filming the abuse. Today at Wood Green Crown Court, the 45-year-old pleaded guilty to 26 offences. 4 children have so far been identified. The police called it one of their most harrowing and complex investigations into child abuse. And it isn't over.
Vincent Chan is a paedophile. He's disturbed, predatory and sexual offending took advantage of young children, using his workplace to gain access to his victims. But our work is not over. Our investigation remains ongoing and we are continuing to review digital devices and assess Chan's conduct across relevant settings.
Chan worked at the Bright Horizons nursery on Finchley Road between 2017 and last year. He was only caught after a colleague complained he'd been filming and editing humiliating videos of the children on nursery-issued iPads. Once arrested, police found a slew of horrifying pictures and videos on his devices. The crimes committed against these children are horrific enough, but the fact this happened at a nursery, somewhere these youngsters should have felt safe and by someone in a position of trust, makes the case all the more shocking, and parents are demanding answers. A statement by affected families was read out by their lawyer.
We feel that Bright Horizons as an organisation has failed us and we want answers. How was someone like Vincent Chan employed? Why did safeguarding systems fail completely? And how were such horrific crimes against children able to continue for so long without the staff responsible for safeguarding at Bright Horizons Nursery acting?
A spokesperson for the nursery said, "We are shocked and appalled by this individual's horrific crimes. Our organisation's mission is to protect and nurture young children. This individual's actions represent not only a violation of the victims, but also a profound betrayal of the trust placed in him by families and colleagues." The families of Chan's very young victims are receiving specialist support, and he's due to be sentenced for his crimes at the end of January. Rachel Venables, Sky News in Wood Green.
A review into the death of British teenager Harry Dunn has revealed a series of government failings in bringing his killer to justice. Ansar Koulas was granted diplomatic immunity and allowed to return to America after knocking Harry off his bike in 2019. The report says the Foreign Office missed key opportunities to work with the US government to bring her back. Sky's Lisa Dowd reports.
His family had 6 years enjoying life with Harry as a teenager.
Didn't even get it in your mouth.
The 6 years since his death have been horrendous. and made worse by their own government.
They were incapable. They were totally incapable of helping us.
Motorbiker Harry was 19 when a US spy crashed into him outside RAF Croton in Northamptonshire. Anne Sakoulas was at the wheel. When she left the UK with diplomatic immunity, Harry's family were heartbroken. They first went public with Sky News when they'd learned themselves that Sakoulas had gone.
We don't know how on earth we can start to grieve for him because we have nothing, we have no justice, we have nothing to put our minds at rest that she's even remorseful.
It was only when the UK government knew about this interview that the family was offered a meeting with the Foreign Secretary.
At the heart of this was a mismatch. The US immediately escalated the case to the highest level. Here, the Foreign Office in London failed to grasp early on what was happening. It meant that they could only respond to events rather than influence them.
Feeling abandoned, they took their fight for justice to Washington themselves.
Nobody came with us to the White House to help us. Nobody come to mop us up and look after us from the embassy in Washington. We were just left to fight for ourselves.
This final report into Harry's case makes 12 recommendations to improve support and communications with families and calls for more transparency over the complex diplomatic arrangements around US military bases in Britain. In a statement, Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper said, "I have huge respect for the dignity and resolve Harry's family has shown throughout the period since his tragic death. We are committed to learning the lessons from this tragedy, especially on support for victims, ensuring that no family facing a crisis of this kind should have to fight for the support they rightly deserve."
What words do you have for Harry Dunn's family today?
Have a nice day.
Anne Sakoulas admitted causing Harry's death by careless driving in 2022. She refused to return to Britain to appear in court, so was sentenced via video link. Her 8-month prison sentence was suspended.
We've lost a lot of joy from our lives. It's very difficult to become excited about anything anymore. I think 6 years on, we've sort of resigned ourselves to knowing that that feeling in life is not going to come back.
None of it changes the fact that Harry Dunn should now be a 25-year-old man. He is missed here as much as ever. Lisa Dowd, Sky News, Northamptonshire.
Water is being restored to thousands of homes in Kent after 5 days without supply. But residents have been told that they have to boil their water before drinking it. South East Water has issued a so-called boil water notice for 24,000 homes in and around Tunbridge Wells who have experienced a loss of water or low pressure since Saturday. The company apologising for a water quality issue. Well, Sadia Chowdhury has been following this story for us today. So many people in Tunbridge Wells without water since late Saturday afternoon. It's caused a lot of disruption. What's the latest this evening?
The latest is that boil water notice that has been issued to 24,000 homes, because that's how many homes are being affected by this. And as I say, since last Saturday, which is 5 days now without water for people. So you can imagine the frustration that they're going through. This is, of course, the irony of it all is that it's a spa town, Tunbridge Wells, and people are having to queue up for very long times to try and get some bottled water packs to take home. Some vulnerable residents saying that they're supposed to have water delivered to them. They're not having that done. And the big issue here is that they say that South Eastern Water has constantly said it's coming back on, then said actually it's not coming back on, then it is coming back on.
They've missed so many deadlines. Yeah.
Exactly. And now to be told that when it does come, it's not going to be drinkable, you can't brush your teeth with it, you can't wash your dishes with it, you can't cook with it. I mean, frankly, I think some people think, if I can't do all of those things with it, then do I even want to shower in it?
Yeah.
But the idea is to keep toilets flushing and to keep that water going. And the residents are simply fed up. We spoke to some of them. Have a listen to what they said.
They keep saying that they're going to change the times and then the water's going to come back, but they keep losing our hope.
Frustrating, exhausting. The comms has just been absolutely horrible. It's a really inhumane way to treat people.
We've had actually quite a lot of communication. It's just been wrong. That's been the problem.
We've got rainwater to flush the toilet. This is unbelievable.
What they said online today sort of made pretense that it was coming back on today, but it's not. No showers, no hair wash. God knows how people with small children are managing.
I think now there are also calls for South East Water's chief executive to resign. But let's talk about where this all started. So Saturday night, the company said that some routine testing had revealed that some of the water wasn't safe, so they switched off one of the main waterworks systems. They then sort of recharged it all, thought it was all going to come back on, and then realised that those water quality issues that they had initially were back again, so they had to switch it off again. Now this new boil water notice, which has been issued to 24,000 homes, which means when the water does return, which is set to do tomorrow at midday, it's not going to be drinkable.
Yeah, frustrating for homes and, of course, local businesses as well at the start of this festive period. Not very jolly at all for those in Tunbridge Wells. OK, Sadia, thank you very much, Sadia, following that story for us in Kent. Now, the government today agreed to implement a plan intended to reduce the cost of baby formula. Ministers will accept the recommendations that have been put forward by the competition watchdog, which includes how to inform parents of cheaper but nutritionally identical baby formula products. Speaking in the Commons today, the Prime Minister said this plan will help parents save hundreds of pounds.
For too long, parents have been pushed into spending more on infant formula than needed, told they're paying for better quality and left hundreds of pounds out of pocket. I can announce today that we're changing that. We will take action to give parents and carers the confidence to access infant formula at more affordable prices, with clearer guidance for retailers and helping new parents use loyalty points and vouchers. Together, Mr Speaker, that will save them up to £500 before their child's first birthday.
Well, our national correspondent Tom Parmenter has been following this story all year and can tell us more.
It does mark progress on this problem, and that is a win. But does it solve the affordability problems of baby formula in this country? Well, not yet, because the savings that Keir Starmer talked about today will come about through better public health messaging, reassuring parents that the cheaper brands on the market still nutritionally do the same job as the most expensive brands on the market. So there will also be things like loyalty points in supermarkets. They will now be able to be used to spend on baby formula when previously that had been banned. But this does not revolutionise the baby formula market. It makes small steps towards changing it and encouraging reform with the industry and also with the devolved governments of the UK to try and support families, because they are still in very difficult positions 2.5 years after we revealed just how bad things were for families, with them stealing milk or watering it down or substituting it for things like condensed milk. Completely unsafe practices purely because of the prices in the shops. I've spoken to a baby bank in the northeast of England today who said that the demand that they see with this problem still is constant and unmanageable.
It's now a decade since authorities first identified the emergence of county lines drug dealing, with children being used to traffic drugs right across the UK. New figures indicate that the problem is showing no sign of abating. And for those caught up in it, the cost is higher than ever, as our Home Editor Jason Farrell reports.
Consequences is death, prison, or the loss of your sanity.
A cautionary tale about a child who has been groomed into county lines drug dealing. Performed to children at King's Academy Prospect School in Reading. Also in the audience are two mothers who have lived it. Sarah's son got involved from the age of 12.
Initially, I don't think he realised what he was doing, and somebody asked him to take something and pass it on to someone else, and in return they would buy him a McDonald's.
Amanda's son Oliver was also 12 when it started.
He didn't want us to know who his friends were, didn't want to share where he was going. We had lost control completely of him as our child.
So they would give him the trainers, give him the bike, the coats were another thing. Coats. And they would act like it was a gift. Almost like parenting alongside a gang of men.
The play, called Code, is inspired by real people from a Sky News investigation in 2018, which went inside County Line's gangs.
This is what I would give to the people when the little kids when they go out from me.
So what sort of age?
From anywhere from like 12 to like 15, 16.
This man called himself Uncle and ran a drugs line to Reading, while Lucy was a teenage drugs runner.
They stabbed me because I got robbed.
Like the girl in the play, Lucy was stabbed after being robbed by her own gang. It was a setup to debt bond her, so she'd run drugs for free. I met Lucy again, now in her 20s, who says the experience left her traumatised.
Well, I was sectioned in hospital because I was so paranoid all the time, checking behind me, walking in the street, just constantly being on edge.
And what were you afraid of?
Them finding me.
You'll see she's going through hell.
It's a decade since the police first identified the County Line's problem. Time enough to see its enduring impact on children.
What is the long-term impact 10 years down the line on your son?
Currently, he's serving a custodial sentence for possession with intent to sell. Mentally, I think he's traumatised. He has scars from knife injuries, fractures.
Ollie said to his dad, Stuart, no, they don't want the money, Dad. They want me to go so they can stab me.
Amanda's son, Ollie, knew kids were out to get him. And in 2021, he was stabbed to death, aged 13.
We didn't know how to help him. He was crying out for help, but he wouldn't admit it in the words that we would have used. Kids can hide things. Kids can control what we know about their lives. And he did it because he wanted us to feel protected. He didn't want us to be worried.
With over 3,000 vulnerable people, mostly children, extracted from County Line's gangs in the last year, this dramatisation remains all too real.
Well, Jason's here with me. And Jason, a decade on from County Lines being officially recognised as a problem, are we any further along in addressing it? It doesn't sound like we are.
Well, I always thought, it kind of gone away because no one was talking about it. And, we see the occasional press release from the police about arrests and things like that. And I was thinking more about the long-term impacts of it on young people now they've grown up a bit. But actually, when I looked at the figures, they've arrested more people running lines than ever before, over 1,000, and that's among around 6,000 people who have been arrested involved in County Lines. They reckon that about 14,500 children are involved. They referred to safeguarding 3,000 vulnerable people in the last 12 months. So it's as big a problem as it ever was when I first started looking at it and when I did that piece back in 2018. It grew quite rapidly, and I think it's just kind of plateaued and sort of stayed around the same. But obviously there has been quite an effort by the police to crack down on this. They've got a centralised force that looks into it, and they will no doubt say, and they're right to say there's been successful convictions and people being charged, but obviously there's still a problem.
But yeah, there is that pipeline. As soon as they catch some or take children out of it, there's just a fresh supply of youngsters and indeed drugs. What is the difficulty in stopping that, in cutting off that pipeline, as it were?
Well, it's just an age-old problem of fighting the war against drugs. It's, it's just in many ways people say it's an unwinnable war. I think the particular problem with County Lines is when it emerged, you saw, the gangs from the capital cities kind of moving their business out, which again wasn't completely new, but they were just doing it in a way that was completely different. So they were much more exploitation, much more violence. It's the most violent form of drug supply. And also, using technology, using WhatsApp and things like that to quickly build up their market base and basically kick out the local drug dealer. And I remember people at the time saying, if we could just go back to the days of the local drug dealer, there'd be a lot less knife crime, there'd be a lot less violence and probably fewer drugs swilling around in small towns and villages even. So to get back to that, I think it is about trying to, crack down. They've now trying to have a focus on these tech gangs that are running them from within the cities, and also trying to make sure that if children are being exploited, that there are criminal convictions that kind of match that level of exploitation. So they're bringing in new legislation around that.
OK, Jason, thank you, Jason Farrell there, with the story on county lines for this evening. Still to come on the programme, we're going to be live in Windsor, the King and Queen tonight, hosting the German president for a state banquet. We'll take you there live.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
The King and Queen are hosting the German president at Windsor Castle tonight for a state banquet. This is part of his three-day trip to the UK. Frank Walter Steinmeier's visit is the first full ceremonial trip to the UK by a German head of state for 27 years. We can take a look at the scene live at Windsor Castle this evening. It is there behind our correspondent Rhiannon Mills. Sorry, Rhiannon, I thought we were going to see the castle, but we saw you just as festive and lit up and wonderful, but it is behind you. I can just peek it. Rhiannon, we're in for a very festive and a resplendent scene tonight.
Yeah, it is, and I've been able to have a little look around. That is one of the perks of my job, is for every state visit we get to have a look around the banquet hall. We get to see the table. We have a little sneak peek at who exactly is going to be sitting around the table with members of the royal family. And this one is, well, as you'd expect, particularly festive. So the 152 guests, I think it is, will be greeted by the most enormous Christmas tree, apparently the only Christmas tree that's ever featured at a state banquet, 20 feet tall, covered in thousands of lights, and a huge garter star at the top, because obviously Windsor is renowned as the historic home of the Order of the Garter. Also, you have to remember they try and make sure that there are little touches within the menus and the drinks to really cement those kind of hand of friendship, if you like, which is what this state visit is all about. So everyone likes to talk about the cocktail because this is a special tradition that the King has actually come up with himself. This year's is going to be a taste of a Black Forest Gateau. So it's a mixture of chocolate and cherry brandy. So that's what guests are going to be given. Also on the wine list, you have a red wine from 1995, which apparently is when the German president and his wife got married. So there's a little nod to their 30th wedding anniversary as well. It is always fascinating to look at who's on the guest list as well. Of course, as you would expect, lots of business leaders, scientists, huge political figures as well. Of course, the Prime Minister Keir Starmer is there, but also they try to add a little bit of glamour in there too. So alongside the Prime Minister this evening, we are going to see supermodel Claudia Schiffer. There's also going to be the composer Hans Zimmer. You might remember him for composing things like Gladiator and Pirates of the Caribbean. Apparently some of his music is going to be played this evening. Motsi Mabuse from Strictly Come Dancing, she is also going to be there as well. And there's also some football stars as well. Thomas Hitzelberger, he played for Everton and Aston Villa. He's sitting next to Princess Anne. And you've also got Georgia Stanway as well. She's an England footballer and currently plays for Bayern Munich. So yeah, I think there's always that attempt to make sure that they can hook as wide an audience in as possible. Maybe those who aren't necessarily interested in the diplomacy and the politics, which is the really important thing, making sure those pictures go round the world. And there is no doubt when we are likely to see her, the Princess of Wales in a tiara, I suspect will be all over the front pages tomorrow, as usually happens.
Oh, Rhiannon, sounds good. Good menu, Black Forest Gateau. You had me at that. Hans Zimmer, great guest list. Georgia Stanway, the Prime Minister. Like, really eclectic mix of people. Kemi Badenoch is in there. I think you can maybe just see her. And Ed Davies in the background of that shot there. Some more names we recognise on that prestigious guest list. This is a little sneak peek inside that banquet room there in Windsor Castle. Looks very glamorous indeed. Our royal commentator, Alistair Bruce, is used to these kind of events, and it's so great to sort of have a window looking in. There is the Strictly Come Dancing star that Rhiannon was mentioning. It's not Oti Mabuse, it's her sister. I always forget her name. She's a judge. I'm sure Rhiannon will remind me shortly. Strictly Come Dancing, big in our household, big it seems in Windsor Castle as well. Alistair Bruce, set the scene for us. There's the tree that Motsi Mabuse, I knew my producer was a Strictly fan. He keeps it under his hat. But he's come through for me in my moment of need. But Alistair Bruce, set the scene for us. What's going on in that room right now?
Well, they're trying to make sure everyone comes in time for the procession, which will be due to come fairly soon. But it looks like, as so often happens with state banquets, things are slightly delayed. We're seeing the Duke and Duchess of Wellington there with the Lord Lieutenant on the left of Wiltshire, Dame Sarah Troughton, and you can see all the place settings laid out in this extraordinary St George's Hall with the remarkable oak hammer beam ceiling, which was put in after the fire here all those years ago when it was completely gutted by fire and has been rebuilt. The structure itself put up by Edward III in the 1300s, and it is marked everywhere with the coats of arms of the Knights of the Order of the Garter, which was founded in 1348. And so, in essence, it is about as English a location as you can imagine. And the table, the immense table, which was made during the reign of Queen Victoria, is marked with all the different place settings, and each of them which Rhiannon will have seen with the flowers that have come from the royal nurseries and also from nearby gardens. And they will be distributed after the state banquet through one of the Queen's charities to a number of hospices around the area. So those that can't be reused in the household will be distributed in that way. All those who are here have been in the reception, in the neighbouring rooms, the grand reception room, the Waterloo Chamber, and there the King and Queen with the President of Germany and his wife have had the chance to mingle and talk, and this is where, of course, much of the work of these state occasions takes place. And for the King, a chance later on to address on behalf of the United Kingdom his state visitor, and he will do so in English and in German. The King knows his German well, and indeed when he went on a state visit, his first actually of this reign, before he was crowned, he went to Germany, and there he demonstrated his ease with German too. In amongst the guests will be a large number of people who work in business and in finance, who work on the interactions between the United Kingdom and Germany, and it will be in those very carefully manicured and planned place settings that the process. We just see walking in front of us there was the King's private secretary. So Clive has organised this, and he will have made sure all the details are prepared. You'll notice that the King's bodyguard of Yeomen of the Guard have taken their positions around the edge of the room, and the Yeomen of the Guard were founded by King Henry VII after the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1489. So it's an extraordinary amount of history that is gathered in here. The paintings of former kings and queens, including on the left there you can see King Charles I, and it was the end of the Stuart line which led the Parliament of England to summon the prince who lived in Hanover to come and be King George I in 1714, starting a relationship that has been very strong with Germany since then, of course challenged by the period of difficulty in the 20th century when the United Kingdom was at war with Germany, both between 1914 and 18, and also between 1939 and 1945. But this is ancient history to today's important relationship, which will be the focus of this state banquet and of this state visit, which is making sure that the United Kingdom's defence, manufacturing and financial interests in terms of trade and a strong union is developed between two nations, and this is the perfect setting to enable that to take place. And of course at the end of the table, the Norwegian spruce tree, the Christmas tree, and it was Queen Victoria's marriage to the German prince from Coburg, Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, and he brought over the idea, which had been a tradition for him at his home at Rosenau in Coburg, of having a Christmas tree in the house. They used to be decorated with candles in those days, and Queen Victoria's diaries describe the excitement of the children to see the Christmas tree. And so that tradition, which of course brings excitement to so many families in the United Kingdom now and across what is known as the Commonwealth, different cultures who've adopted this tree to have as a celebration in the middle of the winter months. Shortly, the guests will all have been ushered in. It's quite a challenge for the King's equerries and for those members of staff to make sure everyone finds their places, but they leave gaps where the royal procession will find its way in. They'll come into the national anthem, which will be played by the Duchess of Edinburgh's string orchestra, who are playing from the balcony which overlooks this scene. It's remarkable. It's been carefully prepared. They spent about a week laying the table, and it involves people putting special shoes on and climbing onto the table and moving the enormous items of gilt around. But it's a fabulous sight. The menu later on will be in a number of courses. Rhiannon referred to the different courses a little earlier on, but the first will be an open tartlet of hot smoked trout with langoustine, quail's eggs and shellfish sauce, all prepared by the King's chefs here in the kitchens, which are exactly the same as would have been used in Tudor times to feast King Henry VIII and members of his family who were here and the courts ever since. They've, of course, updated the kitchens, and indeed after the fire much updating was done too, but that is where the work and pressure is, and it's always a challenge for those who are preparing the dinner that it should start on time. And the procession now coming through the Waterloo Chamber, led by the Lord Chamberlain and the Lord Steward carrying white staves of office, and immediately behind, on the right, His Majesty the King escorting the President of Germany, and immediately behind, the President's wife, Mrs. Elke Budenbender, with Her Majesty the Queen. The Prince of Wales is with the State Secretary of Germany, Dr. Dorte Dinger, Princess of Wales, wearing her tiara and the insignia in a sash of the Royal Victorian Order, walking with Mr. Sebastian Roloff. With the Princess Royal is Ambassador Wolfgang Dolt, and her husband behind, Admiral Sir Tim Lawrence with Miss Ulla Brunkhorst. Duke of Edinburgh is with the Ambassador Suzanne Baumann, the Duchess of Edinburgh with Dr. Oliver Schmolke. And they will be coming through the entrance from the far end of the room, underneath the carving of St. George killing the dragon, the patron saint of England and of the Order of the Garter. And the orchestra will play the national anthem. The Duke of Gloucester is accompanying Miss Kirsten Gamelan, the Duchess of Gloucester, Mr. Andrew Grady-Smith, and behind that, Claudia Schiffer, known as Lady Vaughan. With the conclusion of the national anthem, the King and the President will take their seats, and as the Queen sits, so will everybody else. After a short moment, while everyone is settled, the King will first of all propose the toast of the President of the Federal Republic of Germany, and he will speak in both English and in German, and I shall attempt to provide a translation of the German when he does so. The King is wearing the sash and insignia of the Order of Merit of the Federal Republic of Germany, and the President is wearing the insignia of a Knight Grand Cross of the Most Honourable Order of the Bath. It's a tradition to exchange these gifts, but the king has had that order for some time. And of course, an underlining fact that the relationships between the Prince of Wales and Germany go back quite a long way. And when the king is ready, he will start his speech.
Herr Bundespräsident, Frau Büdenbender, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, meine Frau und ich freuen uns.
It is with very great pleasure that my wife and I welcome you to Windsor Castle on the occasion of this state visit. It seems only yesterday that we paid our state visit to Germany in 2023, the first one since my accession. On this and on our previous visits, you and your dear wife showed both my wife and myself much kindness.
Meine Frau und mir viel Herzlichkeit gezeigt. Umso mehr
That makes the pleasure all the greater that we can welcome you here at Windsor as our guests, a mark of a very special friendship that binds our two nations.
During your visit, or during our visit, you kindly invited me to address the Bundestag in a deeply appreciated gesture of remarkable friendship, as well as visit your world-famous markets, celebrate the spirit of reconciliation under the cross of nails at St. Nikolai Memorial Church, and be shown how you are using green energy in your ports and transport infrastructure. And I'm so pleased, therefore, that your visit in the days ahead to London and to Coventry will carry many of the same themes, recognizing the deeply historic and richly innovative relationship our two nations hold. And of course, this has always been the way from the year 695, when the patron saint of Germany, St. Boniface, crossed the Channel from Anglo-Saxon England to preach the gospel to the Germanic tribes across the Rhine, seen as barbarians by the popes, but to Boniface, his kinsman. To Edith, the sister of Ethelstan, the first king of United England, who in 959 married the Saxon emperor Otto the Great, later crowned by the Pope in Rome, and described as fearless, charismatic, and intimidatingly hairy. and to Martin Luther, who contributed to the intellectual foundations of the English Church some 500 years later. The bedrock of our relationship has not only been in ideas, but also in trade. Merchants and craftsmen from Dortmund and Cologne, who in 1380 operated the Guild Hall of the Germans in London, which then dominated trade between our nations, and indeed across Europe, for over 200 years. Ahead of tomorrow night and the dinner you will attend at the City of London's own Guildhall, it is wonderful to be joined this evening by business leaders and investors, scientists and creators, representatives of some of the 2,500 German businesses which have made the United Kingdom their home and who personify the modern equivalent of those merchants who came before them. Germany is known the world over for invention and innovation. Siemens' industrial plant in Newcastle is one of many global examples, as is BMW's Mini Cooper plant in Oxford. But even the distinguished representatives of the German automotive industry here this evening, with their cars containing all the latest technology, highest safety, greatest luxury, and new green technologies, would perhaps have looked in awe at you, Herr Bundespräsident, as you travelled this afternoon in the most comfortable and lowest emissions vehicle in the world, the horse-drawn royal carriage. It might only be 6 horsepower, but sometimes a simpler vehicle is all one needs. Football, of course, is another shared endeavour, and I'm delighted to see so many of the footballing fraternity around the table with us here this evening. And of course, I use the word shared in the broadest meaning of the word. There was, one has to admit, some element of truth in the famous description of football as a game where 11 people play 11 people, and then, in the end, the Germans win. And exactly. And with our German friends, as with all of the closest relationships, we celebrate not only our shared characteristics, but also our differences. It kind of escaped no one's attention that Germans are considered by many in my country to have a somewhat different sense of humour. But let me assure you, Herr Bundespräsident, British humour is no laughing matter. Like our languages, English and German, which share such deep common roots, but now do sound a little different, it is undoubtedly true that your language contains a very large number of very long words. As someone who has spent some time trying to learn a little Welsh, I have some sympathy for the proposition that needless gaps between words are a dreadfully inefficient use of paper. Ernst zu bleiben, Herr Präsident.
More seriously, Mr. Federal President, I am delighted that you visit in the year in which our government signed the Kensington Treaty on friendship and bilateral cooperation. The treaty is so named because it was signed at the Victoria and Albert Museum in the London borough of Kensington. And of course, tomorrow you will visit the V&A East. And if any relationship can symbolize the deep empathy between the peoples of Germany and the United Kingdom, it is surely that between Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. My great-great-great-grandfather brought so much to this country as an educationalist and social reformer, not least as the moving force behind the 1851 Great Exhibition.
We have, of course, experienced the darkest times and the most terrible consequences of conflict. But perhaps now, so many decades later, the acknowledgement of past suffering has become the basis for an honest friendship, renewed and redoubled. So looking ahead, Herr Bundespräsident, we have a responsibility to our citizens and to our European neighbours, as well as the wider world, to speak about the shared values of the United Kingdom and Germany, and our shared vision for the future of our modern world, as encapsulated in the Kensington Treaty. As two of the world's great economies and great powers, and with such intimate understanding of one another, I am confident we will face these challenges together. Our partnership continues to adapt to new times, we now find ourselves at the forefront of a global transformation. The search for a way of living that is at once prosperous, humane, and sustainable. Here, as elsewhere, Britain and Germany stand shoulder to shoulder, guided not only by technology and science, but by conscience. We are working together to secure the transition to a world powered by clean energy, the very basis of a livable planet for future generations. And from protection of the world's rainforests through to the development of renewable energy in the North Sea, to the restoration of our peatlands, to the promise of nuclear fusion, and the transformative impact of quantum technologies and space research. Our two countries are partners not just in policy, but in practice. We are animated by the same belief that progress is only meaningful when it genuinely serves humanity. And with regard to shared defence, our German-British bridging battalion at Minden, which I visited during our state visit 2 years ago, is literally building bridges, a unique partnership at the heart of NATO. And more broadly, of course, the United Kingdom and Germany together stand with Ukraine and bolster Europe against the threat of further Russian aggression. Like you, I place trust in the ambition and imagination of our young people, in the Mut zu hoffen, in your memorable phrase, Herr Bundespräsident, courage to hope. It is young people's ideas and their passion that will shape the future we share, whether through academic exchange, youth-led innovation, or the friendships forged in classrooms and on playing fields. Partnerships between our young people will be the foundation for understanding between our nations now and in the years to come. Wahrlich, Herr Bundespräsident, haben Sie sich
Verily, Mr. Federal President, you have devoted your life to strengthening democracy and understanding in an age that tests both. It is 36 years since the fall of the Berlin Wall, a monumentous event in human history. The tumultuous period of political, social and technological change that happened after has tested our values. Many have found that unsettling and even frightening. Fear can lead to anger and resentment.
Viele haben dies als beunruhigend, sogar beängstigend empfunden. Die Angst kann zu Wut.
But the United Kingdom and Germany are united in a continued belief in democracy, freedom, and the rule of law.
An die Demokratie, den Frieden und den Rechtsstaat vereint. Sie selber haben uns auch daran
You yourself have also reminded us that progress need not be loud to be lasting, and that decency, quietly practiced, can be one of the most powerful forces in public life. For that, we applaud you.
In that conviction, let us tonight renew our shared determination to face the future together with honesty and in deep friendship. Therefore, as we celebrate that deep friendship, allow me to propose a toast to you, Herr Bundespräsident, and to you, Frau Budenbender, and to the people of the Federal Republic of Germany.
The King will raise his glass and all those gathered will toast the President, his wife, and the people of the Federal Republic of Germany. The King will return to his seat and, after a short time, the President will reply.
Majestäten, königliche Hoheiten, Lords, Ladies,
Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses,
es
honoured
ist eine
guests.
Zahl, die zu meinen frühen
One
persönlichen
of
Erinnerungen
my
an das
early personal memories of the United Kingdom
eine Zahl, die
is a number that for me, as someone born after the end of the war, will always be inextricably linked with your country. The number is 95,495,4. It was the frequency of the British Forces Broadcasting Service, BFBS, which we were able to receive in my home region of Lippe-Detmold during my childhood. For 50 years, until 1995, British soldiers were stationed in my hometown of Detmold and left their mark on the entire region. The British acquainted us Germans in the former British occupation zone with the delights of rugby, and relationships and friendships were formed. For me, 95.4 was the radio frequency that opened a window onto another world from my teenager's bedroom.
Und so wie mir ging es vielen Menschen meiner Generation. Wir haben ein Land kennengelernt, das wir Deutsche
And
bewundern.
that was the case for many people
Nicht nur für
of
seine
my
Musik,
generation. We got to know a
seine
country
Kultur
that we
insgesamt,
Germans
seine
admired,
Lebensart.
not
Und vor allen
only for
Dingen
its music,
eine
but also for its
Weltläufigkeit, die
culture,
das
its way of
Gegenteil
life,
war von Deutschland.
a global-mindedness that was quite different from the navel-gazing
Hätte ich
engaged in
gedacht.
by Germans.
Später ein wenig älter geworden.
Never could I have imagined that
Einmal auf
later,
Schloss Windsor beim
just
britischen
a little
König.
older, I would be the guest of the British King at Windsor
Majestät, es ist
Castle.
nach Ihrem Besuch
Your
im
Majesty,
März
following your visit to
2023
Berlin in March
bereits unser
2023,
zweites gemeinsames
this is
Staatsbanquett.
our
Man kann
second
also
state
sagen,
banquet together.
wir
So we
beide
could
haben
say that the two of us already have some
Doch
practice
Sie
in
haben
this
hier heute
area.
Abend etwas.
Yet this evening, Your Majesty, you have performed an amazing
Wir
feat.
sitzen in dieser
We are
prachtvollen
sitting in the
St.
magnificent St. George's Hall in Windsor Castle.
Und doch
And
jeder
yet,
kann es sehen
as
und
all of us here can
fühlt man
see
sich
and
nicht nur
feel,
auf das
we
herzliche
have not only received the warmest of welcomes,
sondern ich
we
lege
actually
euch
have
bitte
the sense of being
auch ein Stück
at home. Your Majesties,
Majestäten, meine
my
Frau,
wife
ich
and
danke
I would like
Ihnen
to
für
thank
den
you
besonders
for your especially
warmherzigen
cordial
Empfang,
welcome.
den wir hier genießen dürfen. Die Atmosphäre
The atmosphere here is very
wohl
similar.
vertraut.
After all,
Auch wenn das vielleicht
not
nicht
all
alle
British
Briten
people
wissen,
may
manche
be
der
aware of this, but some of the best-loved Christmas traditions in this country originated in Germany.
Ganz zuvörderst
First and foremost, the Christmas tree, the first one of which was displayed here in Windsor by Queen Charlotte in the year 1800, and which was soon to become a feature in many living rooms in the United Kingdom.
damals
I am inherently interested in British custom because it was thus born out of this
while
tradition
you gave us some good grooves,
that the Germans, you could say, while you gave us some good grooves, we gave you
Meine Damen und Herren, liebe
Gemütlichkeit.
Gäste, seit Jahrhunderten sind unsere Länder einander nah. Und davon
For centuries, our countries have been close. It is not only our shared
sogar
Christmas
jene Dinge,
traditions
über
that
die wir
reflect this,
mitunter streiten.
and even the things we argue about actually connect us.
Wer spielt
If we're honest,
Fußball? Wer
who
braut
plays football more gracefully? Who brews
der
the beer
englische
better?
Rasen lieber im Vorgarten
The
oder
English lawn, is it better in the
lieber den
front
britischen
garden
Humor
or
oder
the
doch
garden
lieber den
plot?
deutschen?
Do you prefer the British or the German sense of humour?
Welcher deutsche Humor?
Though some would probably ask at
Was
this
doch bei
point,
all diesen alltäglichen
what
Fragen
German
deutlich wird,
sense of humour?
wir teilen in
What
vielen
all these
Bereichen
mundane questions make clear is that in many areas we share the same passions, we love the
Ich
same
glaube, das
things,
ist auch der Grund dafür, dass die
and
Menschen
I
im
think
Vereinigten Königreich
it is
und in
also the
Deutschland
reason why the people of the United Kingdom and in Germany
und Deutsche
share an affinity with one another.
viel ähnlicher als die meisten denken.
When it comes down to it, the British and the Germans are much more alike than some would think. And I am convinced that our partnership draws its strength from this very factor.
During your visit in March 2023. Prior to that, you had already visited our country more than 40 times, but the fact that your very first trip abroad as king brought you to Germany was a special symbol of the German-British friendship. A gesture of appreciation, which meant so much to me and to us Germans. I think you were able to see, hear, sense that from your reception at the Brandenburg Gate. During that trip, you spoke in Schloss Bellevue of your many visits, of the people you have met in my country, of the experiences you had taken away from there. We Germans, we were profoundly moved by this deep bond with our country. Your Majesty, when you last visited Germany, we planted a tree together, an ash tree, in the palace garden of Schloss Bellevue, a symbol of friendship, and I can assure you it is still growing and thriving there today, and with it, I think, our relations. The roots of these relations are deep. Our history binds us together, both the good and the bad chapters. The day after tomorrow, I will travel to Coventry, a city that was reduced to rubble by German bombs during the Second World War. And this year, we look back on 80 years of peace between our two countries. With regard to history, what a gift. Flourishing cities grew out of the ashes. Enemies became friends. That is our common history, and it shows what is possible when people have the courage to pursue reconciliation. Your Majesty, it is not least you and your family, we have to thank for this work of reconciliation. The Windsors have consistently forged new ties and thereby promoted German-British relations, just as you still do today. Your tree in Berlin, Your Majesty, stands deeply rooted as a symbol of these relations. Majestät, meine Damen und Herren, dieser Baum steht auch für ein neues Wachstum unserer Beziehungen. Der Brexit war ein tiefer Einschnitt, aber im Ergebnis haben wir nicht zugelassen, dass diese Entscheidung
We want to place our partnership on a new footing. You could say that we want to strengthen the infrastructure of our relations. We are working together to promote security and defence side by side for a free, peaceful Europe, side by side in support of Ukraine. We are working together in the area of energy policy and climate protection, an issue close to your heart and in which you, Your Majesty, have been a pioneer for many decades. The first summit between the European Union and the United Kingdom after Brexit in May was an important step forward, redefining our partnership. Likewise, the Kensington Treaty, signed by our two countries in July, points the way forward for German-British relations. And we are working together to strengthen once again the human ties that have been weakened by Brexit. Young people should again be able to forge friendships more easily They should be able to study, learn, work on both sides of the English Channel. They should experience the things that connect us, shared values, freedom and democracy.
Gemeinsame Werte, Freiheit und Demokratie. Die Überzeugung, auch das
The conviction that together we are stronger, and yes, also shared passions.
Die wir teilen. Majestäten, königliche Hoheiten, Lords, Ladies, verehrte Gäste.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Bei mir war es damals die Leidenschaft.
in my case, it was a passion for good music on BFBS 95.4 that glued me to the radio as a youngster. So much so that it was sometimes hard to turn it off late in the evening. However, if you stayed awake long enough, you would hear the evening hymn and the bugle call, and finally the band of the Royal Marines would play the national anthem. These days, radio stations broadcast around the clock, and hardly anyone knows what a close down is. I sometimes wonder whether that is really progress.
Ich frage mich manchmal, ob das wirklich ein Fortschritt ist. Aber mit der britischen
As a teenager,
im Ohr bin ich als
often
Teenager
enough I fell asleep to the strains of the British national anthem.
erinnernd.
Today, I would like to propose a toast with the words,
Gläser zu erheben,
God save the King, and ask you to raise your glasses
auf Ihre
to His Majesty the King, to Her Majesty the Queen, to the friendship between Germany and the United Kingdom.
God save the King.
Welcome to The World with me, Yalda Hakim, and you're looking at these live images coming in from Windsor Castle, where King Charles is hosting the German president for a state banquet. Let's bring in our royal correspondent, Rhiannon Mills, who joins me live from Windsor. And Rhiannon, this is the first German state visit in 27 years.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I suspect those in diplomatic circles would rather we didn't focus on that. I think there's been a sense today that this has been a very long-standing and important friendship and alliance. And yes, although we haven't had a German president here for a state visit for almost 3 decades, there has been so much work between the two countries. As they were talking about there, the fact that 80 years ago you saw the end of the Second World War. The German president also talking about how our history binds us together, both the bad and the good chapters. Now, these state visits are always hugely important diplomatically. Yes, of course, everyone will be amazed by the spectacle of it all. And tomorrow on the front pages, I suspect you will see all of the tiaras and the glitz and the glamour. But what really underpins the importance of these visits really comes out in those speeches. Yes, glowing with phrases of friendship and familiarity and praise on both sides. But you just have to listen to the topics that particularly the King spoke about within his speech. Yes, he also talked about a shared history and cooperation. He also very heavily talked about trade and business, which I suspect will have ticked many boxes for the likes of Number 10 and also the Foreign Office. We know that the President earlier on today also went to Number 10 to meet up with Prime Minister Keir Starmer and also meet up with business leaders. But also I think what was really telling is that both within the King's speech and also within the German President's speech, they both mentioned Ukraine. And actually, when you talk about the history of the United Kingdom and Germany and how far both countries have come in terms of overcoming differences and that real fear about what is happening in Ukraine and in terms of a peace deal, I think the fact that you had the two men standing up today saying, look, this is why we need to stand together as partners. This is why we need to focus on issues around security and defence. I think that was particularly powerful this evening.
Rhiannon, thank you so much. And of course, we'll be looking at the situation in Ukraine a little later in the programme. But thanks so much for bringing us up to date there from Windsor Castle.